Hi everyone. Welcome back to another video on my Storytime channel. So I'm going to continue reading Stargirl by Jerry Spinelli. This book I remember reading back in high school, and I truly loved the story when I first read it. It truly is iconic in its own way. So we'll continue reading the story then. Chapter 14 I'm up to on page... Yeah, page 14. So let's continue reading then. This was the start of a period that blurs, as I try to recall it. Incidents seem to cascade and merge. Events become feelings, feelings become events. Head and heart are contrary historians. The hot seat session was never aired. Mr. Rubino destroyed the tape. Of course, that didn't stop every moment of it from being reported. In fact, most of the students knew about it by the time school opened the next day. What I recalled then, when the last detail had been spilled, is a period of whispers and waiting, tension. What would happen now? Would the doors open hostilities spill over into the classrooms? How would Stargirl react? Answers that were expected on the following day, Valentine's Day. On previous holidays, Halloween, Thanksgiving, Christmas, Groundhog Day, Stargirl left a little something on each desk in her homeroom. Would she do likewise this time? The answer was yes. Each member of homeroom 17 found a candy heart on his or her desk that morning. There was a basketball game that night that I do remember. The biggest game of the year. The Electrons had breezed through the regular season undefeated, but now the second season was about to begin. The playoffs. First districts and the regionals, then finally the state tournament. We had never even made it to the districts, but now visions of championships danced in our heads. The Electrons, the champions of all of Arizona, we still have nothing less. First hurdle in our way was Sun Valley, champions of the Pima League. The game was played Valentine's night on a neutral court in Casa Grande. All of Mika, it seemed, emptied out and headed for the game. Kevin and I went in the pickup. From the moment the Mika mob entered the gym, our cheers rattled the rafters. The big green M on Stargirl's white sweater flounced as she spun and leapt with other cheerleaders. I spent as much time watching her as I did watching the game. She cheered when we scored. When Sun Valley scored, she did not. Something inside me felt better. But not for long. We were losing. For the first time all year, we were trailing at the end of the first quarter. In fact, we were getting smoked 21-9. The reason was a mystery. While Sun Valley's team was not as good as ours, they did have one thing and we did not: a superstar, a kid named Ron Kovac. He stood 6'8" and averaged 30 points per game. Our players looked like 5 Davids failing against Goliath. Sun Valley's lead increased to 19 points midway through the second quarter. Our once raucous fans were stunned to silence, and that's what had happened. The ball was loose in the middle of the floor. Several players from each team died for it. At that moment, Kovac was running past, trying to avoid the divers, and his right foot came down on a prone player's sneaker, so it was told in the newspapers the next day. At the time, it happened so fast no one could saw it, though several people had said they heard a sickening crack, like a twig snapping. All we knew was that suddenly Goliath was on the floor, writhing and screaming, and his right foot looked all wrong, and the Sun Valley coaches and trainer and players were sprinting across the floor, but they were not the first. Stargirl somehow was already there. While Kovac's own cheerleaders sat gaping and stricken on their bench, Stargirl knelt on the hardwood floor. She held his head in her lap while the others attended had his broken leg. Her hands had moved over his face and forehead. She seemed to be saying things to him. When they carried him away on a stretcher, she followed. Everyone, both sides, stood and applauded. The Sun Valley cheerleaders lived as if he had just scored 2 points. Ambulance lights flashed in the high windows. I knew why I was applauding, but I wondered about some of the other Mika fans. Were they really standing there in tribute, or because they were happy to see him go? The game resumed. Stargirl returned to the cheerleaders' bench. Without Kovac, Sun Valley was a pushover. By early in the second half, we took the lead and went on to win easily. 2 nights later, we lost to Glendale. Again, we fell farther and farther behind as the first half went on. But this time, there was no turnaround in the second half. This time, the Electrons faced not 1, but 5 players better than themselves. This time, no opponent broke an ankle, though I'm sure in our desperation, some of us secretly wished for it. We were shocked. We couldn't believe it. And then as the seconds of the fourth quarter tickled by, we did believe. The cheers from across the gym were like volleys of arrows piercing our grand illusion. How could we have been so stupid? Did we really think that little Mika, undefeated in its own third-rate league, could ever stand up to the big city powerhouses around the state? We've learned to great, foolish expectations. Suckered. We were devastated. It had been so wonderful to be winners. And so right for us. Winning we had come to believe was our destiny. And now, As the Glendale coach sent in the scrubs to mop us up, Mika girls wept. Boys cursed and booed. Some blamed the officials, or the nets, or the lights. The cheerleaders, to their credit, kept on cheering. They looked up at us with glistening eyes and mascara tracks on their cheeks. They pumped their arms and shouted and did everything that the cheerleaders were supposed to do, but their gestures were empty, their hearts not in it. Except for Stargirl. As we watched her intently, I could see that she was different. Her cheeks were dry. There was no crack in her voice, no sag in her shoulders. From the start of the second half on, she never sat down, and she never again looked at the game. She turned her back on the court. She stood and faced us and gave not an ounce of herself to the jubilation across the gym. We were losing by 30 points with a minute to go, but she cheered on us as if we had a chance. Her eyes blazed with ferocity I had never seen before. She shook her fist at us. She flung her defiance to her gloom, and then her face was bloody. A Glendale player had just dunked the ball, and Kevin pounded my knee with his fist and looked to see Stargirl's face suddenly with a bloody mask, and I was on my feet screaming, "No!" But it wasn't blood. It was a tomato. Someone had splattered her face with a perfectly thrown ripe tomato. As the clock expired and the Glendale fans poured onto this court, Stargirl just stood there, her great eyes staring up at us in utter bewilderment through the pulpy red gore. Spouts of bitter laughter erupted among us, even some applause. Next morning at home, I found the card. It was in a school notebook that apparently I had not opened for several days. It was a Valentine, one of those little cutout third-grade sorts showing a blushing little boy and a girl with Mary Jane shoes and a big red heart between them and the words "I love you." And as third-graders, and high schoolers often do, the center signed the code. Yeah, and there's a picture of, a little girl, and there's a star there, so it's supposed to mean Stargirl, I think. So yeah, that was from Stargirl, obviously. But yeah, that's chapter 14 of Stargirl by Jerry Spinelli. Take care, everybody. Another video from my Storytime channel.